Hi, everyone. This is Sandy Alt reporting from the wild, and this is the audio podcast companion to my blog on Substack. This is episode 22, Running into the Sun. Lately, I feel like I'm running on empty. I've been running into the sun for a long time. Let me quote lyrics from Running on Empty, a song by the prolific American talent Jackson Browne. Looking out at the road rushing under my wheels, I don't know how to tell you all just how crazy this life feels. I look around for the friends that I used to turn to pull me through. Looking into their eyes, I see them running too. Running on empty, running blind, running into the sun, but I'm running behind. I have a strong personal connection to this song from younger days when I performed with and opened for big-name bands like Browne's, when I, too, experienced the weariness and loneliness of touring for months on end, which this song laments. And I also know what it is like to run into the sun, into the heat, into the fire, into the chaos and the conflagration, into the fight. I know this from a life lived out loud politically, and especially from my time as a wildland firefighter, when I was trained to run towards the fire. I'll have a tale from the wild about this before we're done here. But first, let me tell you why I think we should all be gearing up to run into the sun right now, and how you can get started or find a way to do more. We have a shared threat, a blazing inferno we all need to fight. Right now, today, right here, the authoritarian assault advances. Another American city is occupied by military forces whose rightful mission is to defend our country from enemies abroad. Our pedophile pal president invites Putin, for whom the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant for war crimes, to meet on American soil, ostensibly to talk peace plans for Ukraine, without Ukraine at the table. This is partly designed to distract us all from the fact that the person who occupies the Oval Office is both politically and personally incontinent over the Epstein files, where the shit is leaking out everywhere and the stench of it cannot be disguised, no matter how devious and dishonest the administration is, no matter how they cavort and handspring about to try to lead us off track from this astonishingly appalling actuality that the filth and inhumanity of pedophilia, in addition to the corruption, criminality, cruelty, racism, and Nazism, has pervaded the presidency. Meanwhile, Republicans in blood-red states openly plot with the pedo-prez to perform mid-decade surgical redistricting of their states to disenfranchise every non-Republican voter and eviscerate the foundation of our democratic self-governance, which promises each citizen a vote. No hiding their intent, no making excuses, just a blatant admission that they can't stay in power unless they destroy free and fair elections and kill the republic that gave them their current positions and their riches. The contrast between what is happening to our democracy and the public's tepid at best reaction is crazy-making for me. How can a small smattering of occasional organized peaceful protests be the totality of our citizens' counter to this escalating tyranny? How do we wake more people up, motivate them to get in the fight, to reverse this regime and save our country from tyranny?
This is beyond a five-alarm fire. This is us loitering in the path of complete obliteration as a country. Not just politically, but personally, generationally, and globally. We can't just put on sunscreen and graze in the blast zone hoping not to get burned. Some of us are already running into the sun to fight this head on. And yet, across this land, too many people are not finding a way to fight. They still have plenty. They aren't watching the skies for vultures. They aren't worried about their job yet, or their health care, or their retirement account, or their kids' future, or their country. Or maybe they are worried about these things, but to distract themselves, they go on enjoying the plenty that remains for the moment. Who can blame them? The firestorm isn't on their doorstep yet. Maybe they think they will be able to beat it back, or even reverse it once it gains their threshold. Maybe they hope someone else will arrest it before it gets there. Maybe they just don't know what they can do. These must be the reasons for their inaction, because no one I know is openly planning just to succumb once it arrives in their backyard.
I get the need to find balance if you've been fighting too hard for too long. I am there myself, admittedly way past there. I tried taking a week off. While away, I managed not to read, watch, or listen to the news, other than to note the headlines and notifications that crawled across the screen of my phone. And even then, I tried not to dwell. But when I got back to the fight, I realized I had never completely left it. Now, I'll admit, for me, it takes a lot for my wilderness survivor's mind to go away. I have only felt it happen a handful of times in my whole long life. Floating on the water after paddling my kayak to the center of a lake and losing myself in the rhythmic sound of small waves slapping against the side of my boat. Lying on the ground next to a tent in the middle of nowhere and counting the shooting stars during a meteor shower. Sitting at the pinnacle of a hike and looking out at the beauty of mountain meadows blooming with wildflowers surrounded by snow-capped peaks. Listening to the air swirl and sing against the stacked stone walls of an ancient ruin in a remote red desert canyon. Yes, I can get distracted by beauty, by wonder, by pleasure, such as the contrast between cold creek water on my ankles and the warm sun on my back. But these instances all happened in much calmer times when our country was not in landslide towards authoritarianism. I seldom completely suppress that compulsory situational awareness I somehow attained early in my life and have relied on time and again in dangerous circumstances. I always check for the sightlines. I don't sit with my back to a door. I can't not know where the exits are. Long ago, I made friends with danger. As a former wildland firefighter, I am trained to run towards the fire. As a wilderness explorer, I have taught myself not to back down from danger, but also not to ignore the warning signs. As an advocate for the wild, I have learned to assess and balance the risks and rewards of being a part of it, which has required me time and again to muster my fiercest inner badass. But lately, I am on hyper alert every moment. There is little, if any, respite. While we don't all choose to lead high-risk lives, as citizens of a democracy, we are each compelled to meet the challenges of caring for and protecting it. It is not somebody else's job. It's everybody's job. My job, your job, our job. Our democratic republic has been under caustic, creeping assault for decades. For years, the attacks from the right were ongoing, but not so cripplingly disruptive that the general populace saw the insidious spread of this slow and steady assault. Soothed by prosperity that gave most Americans enough leisure time and spending power, the citizenry fell into a sleep-like state of self-satisfied safety. The enemy abroad had not disturbed our progress towards prosperity and world dominance, but the enemy within was already on the move.
Now we have open attacks on our democracy, and the greater public fails to rouse and react. Yes, many of us have rallied time and again. The Women's March, the George Floyd protests, and others. Indivisible formed and grew during Trump's first term in the White House and still soldiers on. Formidable forces like the Lincoln Project sprang up to inform and warn the populace about what was at stake in the shadowy initiatives rising on the right. Project 2025 was exposed. The people were told. The defenders of democracy shouted from the rooftops to wake up our fellow Americans, and still, the willfully ignorant and the self-righteously indignant, the racists and the misogynists and the stupid and the cruel rallied behind Trump and his ilk, and, even after a bloody insurrection which they saw with their own eyes, they handed the keys to our democracy to the bad guys.
When Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts casually claimed,
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
a minority of bad people in America were all for it. And the good people in America were divided. Some rallied to fight for democracy, working hard to inform and engage their fellow citizens. More came out for rallies, connected with others in meetings, donated to campaigns, or volunteered to help good candidates. America might possibly have a majority of good people, but if that is true, it is truly a slender majority. And the tactics we've been trying are not forceful enough to reverse this tyrannical regime. The small number of us fighting is not enough, and likely, rallies and protests are not enough. Campaigns and candidates are important, but we are no longer guaranteed free and fair elections.
We are in dangerous, deep, dark tyranny territory now. They have the military. They have decimated the mainstream media. They have destroyed the Department of Education. They have given almost all of what we paid in taxes to the rich and to a newly formed government-sponsored terrorist force that they have created to petrify, persecute, subdue, suppress, and kidnap people off American streets. They have created concentration camps on American soil. They have openly called for the diminishment and dominance of women. They have proudly and publicly used Nazi language, propaganda, and symbols in government announcements, at public events, and in social media. They have unapologetically called for Christian nationalism and the subjugation of people of color. They unabashedly flaunt corruption and oligarchy. They plan to permanently transform the people's house into a plutocrat's palace. And they perform mind-boggling feats of falsity to divert our attention from the truth of a failing economy and the building body of evidence of predation and sexual assault on minors by the predator potentate and perhaps others in his den of deviance. They invite authoritarian dictators, murderers, and war criminals to the White House. They deviate from disease control and from arresting poverty to fatten the coffers of billionaires, and they delight in cruelty with Instagram posts of unimaginable inhumanity to immigrants. And still the American population does not rise up en masse. They do not boycott. They do not strike. They do not take to the streets in sufficient numbers to shut down the dictatorial seizure.
Let's go back to Jackson Browne's song. Gotta do what you can just to keep your love alive. Trying not to confuse it with what you do to survive. In '69, I was 21, and I called the road my own. I don't know when that road turned into the road I'm on. I don't know when my road of occasional political activism, protests against the Vietnam War, rallies for the ERA, helping good candidates get elected to office, turned into the road I'm on now either. But I do know that, as Browne does, looking back at the years gone by, I am someone who always runs into the sun, into the fire, into the fight. A few years ago, my husband Tracy and I took off to explore the wilds of the Northern Rockies in Canada to see and film wolves and bears along the backbone of the northernmost parts of this continent. It was an unforgettable adventure, one which found us exhausted, elated, and almost unbearably inconsolable when it came time to leave. We had fallen in love with the unspoiled beauty of Canada's turquoise rivers and lakes in which we bathed, from which we drank. We had realigned ourselves with the rhythms of nature, become invisible and egoless again. Mere creation without intent or ambition or desire, one with the wolves and the bears we wandered among. We shed tears as we crossed the border to come home, exhausted, sunburnt, spent, while also satiated with wonder. Our planned route back to Colorado was blocked, a detour set around a massive wildfire in the mountains of Montana. We saw this menace hours before, the ominous smoke column, the anvil-like cloud formation, and our sharpened senses smelled the smoke long before we got to the boundary line. And here is how it is to be someone who runs into the sun. Tracy and I turned to look at one another and laughed. I was just wishing I had my fire gear with me, I said. And he said,
Me too. I was wondering whether I had my smoke jumper boots in the back.
This is who we are. We see the smoke column, we smell the forest burning, we run towards the fire because we have trained ourselves to fight it. We have learned from experience to proceed with caution, but without letting fear deter us from meeting the moment with everything we have. And that's how we've defended democracy all these years. And this leads me to wonder if maybe the good people in America who don't know what to do might need something like the political equivalent of fire camp, where you go as a rookie and learn the ropes, gain some confidence, figure out what your best skills are, and find a place for yourself in the world of wildland firefighting. Fire camp trains responders in these 5 divisions that an incident response team deploys to meet a disaster. 1. Command. Command sets objectives, priorities. They lead. 2. Operations. This is the division that carries out the tactical objectives. 3. Planning. These are the folks who develop strategies, tactics, gather intel, manage resources. 4. Logistics. These guys arrange for and place the provisions of everything needed by the team. And 5. Finance. This is who manages getting the funds and paying the bills for the incident. All of us don't need to be on the front lines. Many of us are better placed elsewhere. Where do your skills lie? If you're a leader, you're likely already running into the sun. But it takes a whole team of folks with a variety of talents to mount a meaningful defense against an assault on our democracy. Some organizations are already doing inform and involve versions of this, but it might be much more effective in the face of this steamrolling authoritarian takeover to create initiatives with more of a disaster response mobilization format. Look for the activists in your community and ask about how you can get involved or more involved. We don't have much time if we have time at all. We can't let up for a moment. But if you've been waiting or if you've been thinking you need to do more, maybe you could get together with others in your home community and learn and plan how to fight the tyranny that is coming for us all. It's going to take so much more than what we've been doing up to now, and it's going to take all of us. In closing, looking back as Brown does in this song as he pounds the piano rhythmically to a rock beat, I'd love to stick around, but I'm running behind. You know, I don't even know what I'm hoping to find. Running into the sun, but I'm running behind. I can see that I've been running into the sun for a long, long time. If I can do it, you can do it. You already know what you're good at. Do that. Join me. This has been Sandy Alt reporting from the wild. Every week or so, I publish a written blog on Substack, and then a few days after, I produce a podcast version like this one. You can read and subscribe to the companion blog to this podcast on Substack at sandyalt.substack.com. I hope you'll subscribe and share it with your friends. My grateful thanks to the very talented voiceover artists Michael Clarkson and George Jackson and T. Kearns from my production team for their voice work for this podcast. And to two very gifted people on the team for their work refining the script, Teresa Daus-Weber and Eric Brody. Be sure to give Eric's blog on Substack a read. It's called Decency and Sense. And if you want more stories from the wild, look for my Wild Mystery series. You can start with any book in the series and go wild.